For the most part, retail seasonal hiring is finished. Most seasonal positions are temporary, but you want to turn this into a permanent position, and you don't want to get laid off at the end of December or in early January. So how do you make that happen? Well, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about the things that you can do to turn your temporary seasonal position into a permanent position. It is the week of December 1st through the 5th, and you're watching the QC Step Podcast. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the QC Step Podcast. I'm Corey Finneran. I'd like to use this first little segment of the podcast to answer a student or teacher submitted question. I don't have one this week, but if you submit one to me after you finish this episode, then I will discuss it on next week's episode. To submit a question, go to qcstep.com and click on the question submission icon that's on the right side of the website. And that will take you to a form where you can enter in the question that you would like answered on the podcast. Some of you may have gotten a retail seasonal job this fall. Usually these positions are temporary positions, but if you can impress management with your work, you might have a good chance of being kept on after the holidays. But as I go through these things, they aren't just tips for those of you that are working temporary seasonal jobs. These things will also apply to you and your work situation if you're working a regular job that isn't temporary. And if you're not working a job, these are tips that you should keep in mind when you do get a job. Whether your job is temporary or not, these things will help make you a better employee and will give you a better chance of being successful on the job. The first thing that you can do to improve your chances of turning your temporary position into a regular position is to provide great customer service. Customers are the most valuable thing to retailers. You were hired for that position because they felt that they could trust you with their customers. If you don't take care of those customers, you're pretty much guaranteed to not be offered a position after the holidays. Competition between retailers is really intense, and it's not always about prices, but it's also about customer service. Your employer wants to give their customers the best experience possible, and the customer service that you provide is crucial. So follow your employer's guidelines on customer service. If it involves asking customers if they're finding everything okay, then ask the customers if they're finding everything okay. If a customer asks you a question and you're just not sure of the answer, then tell them that you will find someone that will be able to help with an answer to their question. In an age where we do more and more of our shopping online, this kind of customer service is what sets brick and mortar businesses apart from the online retailers. And if you haven't heard of that term, brick and mortar businesses, these are the businesses that we have in our community, the stores. And they call these businesses brick and mortar because they're tangible, they exist, they're made out of brick and mortar. You can drive by them. These are brick and mortar businesses. And these types of businesses, they have a really hard time competing with the prices that online retailers are able to offer. So they rely on things like good customer service to keep people coming through their doors and to keep people shopping in their businesses. So we know that customer service is crucial to your employer. So provide good customer service. Smile and be polite. And if you do those things, you'll be much more likely to be successful in temporary or in permanent employment. The second thing that you can do to improve your chances of turning your temporary position into a regular position is to be as available as possible with your schedule. Business increases for these stores and they bring on temporary workers because they have a need for more employees. If they hired you, one of the reasons that they probably offered you a position is because you had open availability and you were able to work when they needed you. keep that availability open after you get hired. If your employer calls you and asks you to cover for the shift of someone who's sick, or if they ask you to come in and work because they need more workers because things are busier than they expected, then say yes. They're calling you because they value you. So take that as a compliment, and it's a type of compliment that leads to more money, so you can't really beat that. If you always say yes to your employer when they ask you to work shifts, they will remember that when it comes time to deciding who they offer a permanent position to. To go along with this idea of being available and being as available as possible with your schedule, don't call in sick. If you're very sick, then you shouldn't go to work because it's not good customer service to expose customers to sickness. But if you're just feeling crummy and you can muscle through a shift, then do it. If in the month or month and a half that your temporary position lasts, if you call in sick during that time, the manager may question whether or not you are reliable. And another thing that makes them question your reliability is if you're late to work. If you are late to work, it tells management that you don't take this job seriously. And if they feel like their business isn't important to you, then you won't be important to them. The third thing that you can do to improve your chances of turning your temporary position into a regular position is to work hard. And this really should be common sense. If you want to be an employee that your business can't let walk away after the holidays, then you need to work hard. Get your work done in the time that they give you to do it. And if your work isn't done at the end of the shift, then ask if you can stay until your work is completed. If you complete all of your work before your shift is over, then ask a manager if there's anything else that needs to be done. Part of being a hard worker is identifying what needs to be done and just doing it. For example, if there is a spill in an aisle or if there's trash in an aisle, then clean it up. You might want to tell the manager if there's a big spill, it's going to take you a few minutes to clean up. You might want to tell the manager, hey, I'm going to go clean this up just so you know where I'm at. And then they'll know that you are doing something constructive and you haven't just disappeared during a busy time. But just clean things up if you see something that needs to be cleaned. If you're walking down an aisle and there's just garbage sitting on the ground, then just pick it up. If a manager sees you walk past a mess that needs to be cleaned up and you don't do anything about it, I think your chances of being kept on after the holidays, your chances aren't very good. Business slows down after the holidays, and if you've been hired for a seasonal position, your goal is to be so valuable to that business that they don't want to see you stop working there, and so they offer you a position to stay on after the holidays. So to help make that happen, provide great customer service. Be available with your schedule and work hard. If you recently started a job and you're having trouble with anything and you'd like some advice on how to handle situations, or if you're confused by any of your responsibilities that you have with your job, then ask your step teacher to contact Gary or Carrie for you. Gary and Carrie, they'd be happy to sit down and discuss any employment situation with you. And if you're not in STEP, then email me, info@qcstep.com, and I will pass it along to Gary or Carrie, depending on which school you go to. There are a few job leads this week, and if you go to qcstep.com, you will see them listed in the blog post that's right below the post for this episode. And there are links to the online applications there. And if you need help with these or any other applications, or if you get an interview and you'd like some help preparing for that interview, then contact Gary or Carrie through your step teacher or email me. I know that most of you are on Facebook, and I would suggest joining the QC Step group on Facebook, and you can find that at qcstep.com/Facebook. I share articles and videos on employment in there, and it's also a great place for you to get your employment questions answered. I say every week that I get the notifications for activity in that group sent to my phone. So if you have a question while you're filling out an application, then just go ahead and post it in there and I can give you an answer almost right away. Also, to kind of entice you to join the group, right before I started recording this episode, I took my phone and I did a little bit of a tour of the studio in here, and I showed you the lights, the microphone, or actually I didn't show you the microphone, but I showed you the camera, I showed you the teleprompter, so I know what to say. So join the Facebook group and you'll see that posted, and it's a little bit of a tour just to kind of give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look of what this podcast looks like from sitting in this chair. Don't forget that I want your questions on employment. I'm sure that you have questions about job applications or the interview process or how to handle certain situations on the job. And know that whatever question you have, I'm sure there are other students that have that same question, and all students are going to be able to benefit from you asking the question and the information that I'm able to give about that situation. If you're watching this on QCStep.com when the episode is done, then just click on that icon that's on the right side of the website and submit a question, and I will answer it next week. Thank you for watching this week's episode, and I will be back next week with another episode of the QC Step Podcast.